All right, Little Rock, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for another season of the Block Talk, and it's the beginning of season 3. I'm welcoming my first guest, Miguel Lopez. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, it's nice to see you. I know I've seen you out in the community multiple times. We are in relative fields. So you are First Community Bank. You're the Vice President of Community Development, correct?
Something like that, yeah. I want to apologize in advance for the low ratings you're going to get with me being on the podcast. I'm impressed, and I'm actually a fan. I've watched it since you did the mayoral ones to now, and just humbled and honored to be considered worthy of sharing this microphone with some of those other folks. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And also, it would make no sense not to have you on the show because of how much interest and development you have been a part of in the city of Little Rock, because it's kind of it's something that you have to, when you live here and you go to all these events and you meet all these people, you learn over time who's truly vested and who's here to make a difference. And you're one of those people. And so can you tell me a little bit about why you chose Little Rock to dive so deeply into?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so as my name will give it away, I'm Hispanic. I was actually born in Mexico. And my family, in search of, the coveted American dream, they moved to the United States when I was about 2 years old. We actually landed in California at first, and my parents didn't really like it. We were there for probably 6 months. Yeah. And one day, had the good fortune, one of my aunts was living in Sherwood, Arkansas, which is about 15 minutes from here. And she said, "Hey, I heard you guys are in the States. You guys should, try Sherwood. You'd like it. It's not a lot of people. There's good jobs, good housing." And I always tell people, in life, you can always point to pivotal moments where you caught a big break or something like that. And arguably for me, that was that moment, because it had just dumb luck, nothing I could control. But we had the good fortune of my family deciding to take my aunt up on that, and we moved to Sherwood, and we've been in Central Arkansas ever since. And to answer your question, one of the reasons why I'm just so involved in the community is, when we got here, we just had a suitcase full of dreams and the determination to want to do something with our lives. And Central Arkansas was just the perfect place. I mean, we couldn't have landed in a better spot. You think about the dumb luck. I mean, had that aunt lived in San Antonio or some other big city, we would have just gone there. But we had the good fortune of going here, and every dream I've ever had, my family's ever had, Central Arkansas has made it true. And now I'm at the stage where I want to continue to give back to the city that's given me and my family so much. Yeah. And that's why I like to get involved in nonprofit boards or volunteer, because I almost feel like an indentured servant some ways for all the gifts that my family and I have been receiving. So that's kind of why I like to get involved where I can.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to sell Sherwood too. She probably said, "You sure would like it here." When you guys got here and you started building, obviously you were 2, so you probably weren't at work quite yet. But as you began to grow up in this community, I know you've gone to high school here, you've met a lot of people that you care about deeply. What made you decide to take the move into banking and being a part of this particular bank? Or basically, in other words, did you see the opportunity for development and service to your community through that job, or what made you choose it?
It was again, dumb luck. I always say my life's just a combination of dumb luck, opportunity, and preparation. And all those things kind of have led me to the path that I'm on now. And you're right. One of the things I love about banking, it's just people. It's all about people. It's meeting them where they are, asking them what their goals are, and helping them get them there, whether they're a small checking account or a savings account or an entrepreneur that wants to scale their business.
That would be the small checking account.
Yeah. And Central Arkansas has the greatest people. I mean, when I worked at the Chamber doing economic development, we would have people from all over the United States come and visit for conferences and this, that, and the other. And people would just be blown away by just how nice people in Central Arkansas were. We'd meet them at the Chamber, and we'd walk them around downtown and drive them around. And people, they're just walking, and people would wave at them, say hi, smile. Mm-hmm. And I had people on a couple occasions say, "Are y'all paying people to do that?" I'm like, "No, man, this is who we are. We're
really that nice."
Yeah, exactly. We genuinely care how you're doing and mean it when we say good morning and good afternoon. But people, I've just been so fortunate in my life to have people that have helped me. And the first one that comes to mind was my ESL teacher, because when we moved here, all I spoke was Spanish. English is my second language. And had we stayed in California, I would have been, one of thousands of students in the ESL program. So I would have, just kind of gotten probably lost in the shuffle, so to speak. But I'll never forget, when you're a kid, you have days that you can just almost relive them detail. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was when I started Cato Elementary down there in Sherwood. And I got on the bus, and I didn't know any English. I was petrified. I was
yeah.
like,
I imagine.
what's going to happen? I don't know how to talk to anyone. But when I got off the bus, there she was, Miss Villarreal, my ESL teacher, just waiting for me, just for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've never
That's
felt,
a really special experience.
oh, are you kidding me? I mean, have I been in
Like,
California?
I hired this lady just for me.
Yeah.
And she was probably
there.
excited to meet you.
Probably. And I still stay in touch with her. We're Facebook friends, and arguably one of the most influential people in my life, just because she taught me English. And, you know, we'd go through the class, and she'd sit next to me, and I had a built-in friend, and she'd help me learn. And 6 months later, and I kind of really don't remember learning English. It was just kind of like, I just one day woke up and I was like, all right, I got this.
Well, I was about to ask, so did you guys have conversations secretly in Spanish about how difficult the English language is? Because it's kind of ridiculous.
We probably talked about the teachers or something like that.
Yeah, you were probably like, what do you mean read, read is the same? Lead, led? What?
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. So whenever she's teaching you Spanish and you've learned, I'm teaching you Spanish, teaching you English, and you're learning through this program, now you're starting to make friends and you're starting to feel at home. And then you kind of follow your path. What high school did you go to?
So I went to Seven Hills High School.
Okay.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
And I loved it. It was weird at that point because I was my sister and I, we were the only Hispanic kids at the school. So it was a really interesting upbringing because we were kind of like a novelty, you know, so to speak, like, oh, these guys speak Spanish. But it was a great high school. Again, the teachers were phenomenal. You know, I still am Facebook friends with a lot of them. I was always it was weird. And this is one of the experiences that I always share with, you know, when I go and speak to students and stuff like that. My first 2 years, I was just kind of like a class clown. I was more worried about being liked, being funny. And, you know, you're the different kid there, right? You're the kid with the last name Lopez. So you kind of have to, I almost feel like I always had to prove myself to everyone. And then one day I got suspended from high school. And I got suspended for a week, which is, you know.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It was scary, but I was like, oh, sweet. I'm just going to hang at home, watch The Price is Right.
Boring.
Yeah. And then my mom, when I got home, she'd found out, and she was livid. And she had other plans for me. She sent me to go work roofing with one of her friends that had a roofing business. So for those 5 days that I was suspended, she'd wake me up at 5, get me to the job site, and then pick me up.
Like, I'd rather go to school.
Oh, gosh, I know. And the last day she picked me up, I mean, I was beat. And I was an idiot. I mean, I don't know anything about laying, you know, roofing shingle or whatever. So the only thing I was good for was labor. So my job was to get these shingles on the floor to this roof. That was no kidding about that. Mm-hmm. And it was hard work. And the last day, my mom and I are sitting in the car, and I'm beat up. And I said, Mom, that was tough. I said, those shingles are heavy. And she said something to me then that I'll never forget. She said, son, the books weigh less. And
that's a really good point.
And that was like a bucket of cold water just thrown. I was like, whoa, she's right. And what she was telling me was, you've got this opportunity to get a good education and change the course of your life. Because let's face it, had I not applied to myself, I probably would have gone into a job similar like that. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs because those are jobs that are in demand. They're high paying. But my mom, she wanted something for me that was different. And from then on, it's like a gear switch. I sat in the front of the class. I made friends with my teachers. I became a teacher's pet. I stayed afterwards when I didn't understand something. And I started to build these really genuine relationships with Ms. Weatherford, my journalism teacher, Ms. Lewis, my English teacher. These teachers that really that always saw something in me, but they just realized that I was just spending too much time being a class clown. And next thing you know, I'm going to college, which is something that I never really considered doing, but everyone was doing it. And those teachers didn't give me the option. It's like, you're going to college. It's which one you're going to.
Well, that's kind of the generation we grew up in. I mean, what year did you graduate high school?
2009.
Okay, so I'm way older than you. But when you talk about graduating high school, that was the thing that you did. You went straight to college. Yeah. And anymore, you kind of have a lot more choices. You can choose entrepreneur, you can choose junior college, trade school, university, wherever you want to go. But I totally understand because it was that was the next step. That's just what you did. And your parents especially were trying to create opportunity for you to give you this chance to get an education beyond high school and go do something different with your career. So,
well, and for me, it was always kind of like my parents sacrificed so much. I mean, my dad was a veterinarian in Mexico and never really could become a veterinarian here because he'd have to go to schooling again. So he just worked labor-intensive jobs to provide. And it was almost kind of like, if he gave all that up for me, the least I can do is make something of myself and make him proud and let him know that the sacrifices he made for me were going to be worth it one day. And I think to this day, he can look at me and say he's proud.
So when you went to college, where'd you go?
So I went to UA Little Rock.
Yeah, go Trojans.
Oh, yeah, I love it. And it was the best thing that I ever did because honestly, the reason I went there was because it was close to home. And I wanted the path of least resistance, right? The cheapest way there. I didn't want to live on campus somewhere because I was going to work. I mean, I've been working since I was in high school. Yeah. My very first job ever. And I loved it. I was a newspaper boy for the Democrat Gazette.
That's fun.
And I think that's where I get kind of my fascination for news and media. Because back then when you delivered the paper, you'd wake up and they weren't rolled for you. I mean, there was just a big old stack.
Yep.
And you would go get however many was in your route, and you'd fold them. Or if it was raining, you'd put them in a bag, which sucked because...
I noticed they do that with parking tickets here as well.
Oh, they put them in a bag?
They actually put them in a bag for you. How courteous.
So you can't say, oh, my ticket.
Yeah, I tried.
And it would be horrible because if it's, it's raining and you would just reach in the back of the car to grab a paper, and depending on what side you grab it, it'd fall out and you're like, oh my gosh.
Ugh.
But so I'd been working all my life. So I wanted a college that would allow me the opportunity to get a good education, but also allow me to work while I was doing that. And it was the best. I mean, I'm super involved I'm on the alumni board now because...
You were just at a game the other night.
I go to all the games.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've never been to a Trojan game, you've got to go. It's one of the most fun things to do. We're so blessed to have the Jack Stevens.
I was about to say the Jack Stevens Center. Yeah, it's incredible. That place is beautiful.
Oh, I mean, it throws rocks at any other, university basketball stadium for a city our size.
Yeah.
And got my undergraduate degree. I actually started in broadcast journalism because I thought I was going to be the next Walter Cronkite.
Full circle. Here you are.
Right now on TV.
And now you made it.
And then I took an editing class, and the professor basically said it was the worst thing he'd ever seen, and in a nice way. But that's what he meant.
Another pivotal moment.
Yeah. And then I was like, duly noted. I'm going to switch to political science.
There you go.
And I did, and I loved it, and it was the best thing because I don't have the patience to edit. And kudos to Randy and his folks because to just sit there and, millisecond here. And I just didn't have the patience. I wanted to be out pressing flesh and meeting people. So I graduate with my undergrad in political science and a minor in Middle Eastern studies, which is a whole different story, but I loved it. And here's another big moment in my life. I had the opportunity. I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. And I had gotten accepted to American University, which was my dream. I mean, I thought I was going to go to D.C. and be a staffer and kind of work my way up. But right before I was about to leave to go to American, I started getting kind of nostalgic, because you're starting to make plans of leaving and renting an apartment over there. And I realized, I said, what a jerk. I mean, Little Rock's given me and my family everything. And now that I'm in a position to give something back, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah.
Just go to a different city. That's exactly what I thought. And I went to one of my professors who I admired and still do. And I said, what would you do? I've got... And it wasn't a 4-ride to American University, but it was a substantial scholarship, which I was proud because it's one of the top 10
it's a good school.
Universities for the degree that I was focusing on. And he said, Miguel, you go to the best school you get into. And that fall I did, and I enrolled at UA Little Rock for my master's because I was just,
nice.
I didn't want to go anywhere else. And at the time, one of the things I love of UA Little Rock is whether you want to or not, you're in the center of the city, and you are rubbing elbows with, the mayor, the city council people, the state representatives that come in town. So you're fortunate to have all these people around you. And if you go to the university there, it opens all those doors. So I said, I'm going to stay here, get my master's in public administration, and try to give back as much as I can to the city. That's given me and my family everything. So that's kind of my college track.
Well, it's really exciting because you just mentioned a lot of things that are particular and specific to Little Rock. I mean, with UA Little Rock, not only are you located in the middle of the city, but what you just said was you're rubbing elbows with everybody, and that's kind of how this community is in general. Oh, yeah. But the college is almost like a microcosm of it because at the end of the day, you're dealing with everybody that you know, but you are in a mid-sized city, so it feels like everyone's in a really small town.
Yeah.
You go like just downstairs where, you go to Nexus and everybody knows each other and they all kind of know who's in what industry and what that person's doing there. And so that being said, you wanting to give back to the community, you end up at First Community Bank, which how many years ago did they open?
So our bank's got an amazing story. So our chairman actually started the bank in 99, I believe. And he had been with a bank that got bought out, and he was kind of planning his next move. And a couple of people in Batesville, which is where our bank is based out of, said, hey, why don't you start your own bank? And
no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal, right? And you think of all the banks that are
problem.
there, and, a lot of banks have been around for 100 years, even more. So he did with, a couple of shareholders, and in a building not unlike this, you started taking loans and deposits. Fast forward to today, we're the 7th or 8th largest bank in the state, asset size, about $1.5 billion. And I was at the chamber at the time doing economic development, and I loved it, and I had the good fortune of meeting some folks with the bank as they were plotting their move. And, they said, we just got to talking, and I told them, I said, in the Hispanic community, a large number of them are unbanked or underbanked. And as I saw it, and I could be wrong, but as I saw it, there wasn't really a bank that was making a strong push to reach out to this demographic that's underserved. And I think that's to the detriment of both the financial institutions and also the people, because the quintessential American dream is upward mobility, right? And I kind of have always thought about that. And in order to achieve that upward mobility, you've got to have a strong bank in your corner, whether it's us or someone else. And we kind of got to talking and said, this is what I think a bank could be doing to, benefit the bank, but also the community. And it was music to their ears, because our approach to banking, I love it. And we believe a strong bank supports a strong community, and in return, that strong community is going to support that strong bank.
Right.
And when I heard that, I said, I'm in.
Amen.
And started working with the bank. And now 2 years later, here we are. Had the good fortune that they still keep me around, and I get to still work for the bank.
Well, a good reason for them to keep you around is because you're everywhere. So you have a really good ability to spread the word about what they're doing. Now, First Community Bank is not just part of major commercial projects, which I've seen all over town, but you also do mortgage lending, correct? And banking for the community. So like you said, doesn't matter if it's a small checking account or a massive piece of land that you're going to turn into a shopping center, grocery store. You guys have your hands in all of it. So when you go around in the community, you're not just doing it as a banker, right? I mean, your whole goal is to give back to the community and share an opportunity with them that they may be otherwise unaware of.
Yeah, I like to consider myself solution oriented, and that's all banking is finding a solution for someone, whether it's buying a piece of land, developing it, or buying their first home. These are very personal and momentous events in someone's life.
Well, they touch everybody.
Exactly. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to work for the bank and be out in the community. And it's a dream job to me, because I'm doing right by the community, but I'm also helping the bank in their expansion plans. So, every day looks different for me. Some days I'm out in the community, some days I'm behind a desk, finishing stuff up. And that's what I like about it, because we're able to I always tell people, and this is cheesy, but it's so true, we're not in every corner, but we're going to be in your corner. And
that's good.
I know.
I like that.
And when they call our cell phone or our office phone, we're there for them, and whatever it is they need, we can find a solution for them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I mean, I've had some dealings with your bank before, and I know what projects they're working on, and it's really impressive to see how much they've grown in that time. So you're going on 21 years then this year, yeah?
Well, and it's really cool.
Your bank's almost as old as you.
Yeah, totally, yeah. I had a guy once said, what's your customer service look like? I guess that was going to be the big issue. And I said, you're looking at it. Yeah. And that's when he's like, all right, I like that.
I can do that.
And it's true. I mean, they call all the time, and I love it, because I don't want someone to wait, 30, 40 minutes on a 1-800 number. I always tell people, you should bank with us because we bank the way you grew up banking. You walk into our branch, we know your name, we know your story, we know your dog's name. And
you better know my account number.
Don't make me ask for that. Yeah. And I think that's what people want. We live in such a ever-changing world where technology is always advancing, and I think in a lot of, not just banking, we're starting to lose the personal touch. Back then you could go to Walmart and pay and talk to the cashier for a little bit. Well, now you've got those automated cash out machines, and I think it behooves all the financial institutions to find a way to still be able to hold on to that personal touch, because a lot of the business that you develop is just from people walking into the branch and saying, hey, at some point I want to buy a second home, or I want to buy my first home, or whatever. But if they're just depositing their check on the mobile app or anything, you're starting to lose those touch points. So one of the things that I'm passionate on is how do I keep people engaged so that they don't forget about us, but also continue to do business with us.
Yeah, well, you're doing an incredible job at that, and I like seeing you out in the community. I like every time I get on Facebook or every time I go out to an event, you're either there or you're posting about it, and I know part of that is because you're pushed by your lovely girlfriend. She is very beautiful.
Thank you.
And I know you guys go a lot of places, do a lot of things together. So tell me how, as far as the future goes, now that you're doing this, what is the future for the two of you and the community, and how that's all going to work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I've had the good fortune of meeting Summer 3 years ago, almost to the day, and it's really interesting. It's really hard to imagine what my life was like before her, and it's even harder to imagine what it'd be like without her, just because she's been probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. In these past 3 years, we both have had some pretty good successes. We've gotten new jobs, we've gotten promotions, we've gotten on boards, and I think a lot of that is just how we push each other every day to be better, right? To the fact that I know that in some ways she's kind of looks at me for guidance, and I look at her for guidance. It puts the heat on to always be at your A game, to impress her and to achieve things. And she's just, I don't know, the greatest thing that's ever happened, because a lot of that stuff, the good stuff that's happening in these past 2 years, you can directly point it to her guidance and her her inspiration for sure.
That's exciting. So she's been supportive of all your decisions this far, and I know you're starting to think about other things. I know you'll always be, for now you're part of the bank and you're doing all these things, but you're always going to be in service to the city of Little Rock. I mean, that's kind of your goal, right?
Yeah.
And what does that lead you to in the future as far as, what are your plans? Are you going to build a development here? Are you going to start a school? Are you going to do, what are the things that you just think about? I mean, of course, you don't have to commit yourself to anything, but it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are as far as the future.
Well, one of the things that I love about Little Rock is the opportunity to serve on all these nonprofit boards that I'm on. And these nonprofit boards are doing some fascinating work. I've got the good fortune of being on the Goodwill of Arkansas board, and Goodwill has the state's first and only adult high school, which is amazing. I mean,
That's
we've
nice.
got 300,000 Arkansans that don't have a high school diploma, and the goal is to work ourselves out of a job, because the earning potential for someone that graduates high school and that doesn't, you're talking about, almost $1 million over the course of their lifetime, and Goodwill is right now funding that effort. We've got one school, we've had 3 graduations. One student went from making, $8 an hour to almost $20 just because she was able to get that high school diploma.
It's a big deal.
So I'm always finding ways to plug in, the nonprofit boards that I serve on. I don't just serve on them to serve. They have something that is one of my passions. So with Goodwill, it's education because we've got the high school. With with UALR, it's the alumni board. So I'm passionate. I think if you graduate from a high school in Little Rock, unless you're getting accepted into one of the Ivies, your first choice should be UA Little Rock, just because of the opportunities that it's going to present it, above and beyond the fact that the faculty there is just world class. I mean, you look at the professors teaching there; they're published authors, they've got patents. It's a great university. The Museum of Discovery, my niece and nephew, they love going there. So
I love going there.
Yeah, right.
You don't have
adults.
to be a child.
Yeah. So when I was asked to serve on that board, I jumped at the chance because I want to make sure that I'm, doing my part to raise funds for it and raise awareness. And they're doing some really good stuff in the community. So I'm always looking to ways to get involved with boards. And one of the ones that kind of leads me to the next step is obviously the city board. I'm still kind of praying about it and considering if I'm going to run for city board. I think a lot of things going to have to pan out, but it would be just a dream for me to serve on that city board. I think I'd be the first Hispanic, which is kind of cool. But above and beyond that, I think we as a city, we need to quit being a farm team Summer and I, our high school classmates, the lion's share of them are now living in Dallas or Nashville or Chattanooga, and good for them. But I want to keep that talent here. We do such a great job of educating kids at the high school level. You look at all the national merit finalists and scholars that come out of our schools, and then they go away and they never come back.
Well, you're speaking my language.
Right,
that's the whole reason we started this podcast.
So how do we keep them here? And I was not too long ago, I was in that position. I was this close to going to D.C., and for me, it was more of a serving role, but I was also fortunate that I had all these opportunities waiting for me that made it easier to want to stay.
Yeah.
So how do we create those opportunities, whether it's, job opportunities, volunteer opportunities, but also quality of life is important. So one of the things that really makes me get excited about being on that city board, I think the way you do that is you have representation, right? You have people on the city board that think like a millennial, that are a millennial, and that pass policies that will make it fun for a millennial to live here, above and beyond the economic advantages of that. So stay tuned for that. You technically can't announce until June, so I still have a lot of mulling over to do. But I always tell people, you don't have to be an elected official to do good in the community. You can just volunteer on Saturdays with the local nonprofit, and that is service. I think people find it sexier, to be elected because I guess there's a paycheck or you have a title. But I'm not worried about titles or all that stuff. I'm just more worried about results. And if the best way for me to serve is through what I'm doing now, then great. But if there's an opportunity for me to serve at the city board level, then I'd jump at the chance to do that.
Well, I'm confident that you would be absolutely crushing it in that position, or anyone that you would take for the city. And I appreciate what you said, because the whole purpose of the BLOCKtalk really is to add value to this block and to this area of the state. There's a lot of different things you hear when people talk about Northwest Arkansas or specific, they don't talk about the city. And what we need is to differentiate ourselves as Little Rock. We are the capital city. We're the city that has all these different resources and tools like you're talking about with UA Little Rock. We have UAMS, we have Arkansas Children's, we have the Museum. We just have everything. You look around and it's crazy to me that people would graduate and leave without looking around their hometown and seeing how they can possibly change it for the better. And so I'll be right here with you, trekking along until we are where we need to be.
One of my professors said it best, Dr. Jerry Stevenson, who is still a mentor of mine to this day. He said, anywhere in the world, there's 6 degrees of separation. He said, in Little Rock, it's -2.
That is I was about to finish your sentence.
He nailed it. And
true.
no one is out of reach in the city. I mean,
Nope.
it's just, if you don't know them, I'm sure one of your friends knows them, and
Yep.
it's literally that's as far as you need to go.
Yep.
And one of the things that allows you to be successful in life is just having access to people, right? I mean, I think of myself now, and if I had been raised in Los Angeles, I wouldn't have the job that I have. I mean, it'd be so much more difficult to have access to these people that allows you to serve on these boards. And that's one of the things that I always tell people about. If you want to start, the best place in America to realize the American dream is Little Rock, Arkansas. And you can go to Southwest Little Rock, and you have a bunch of people there that will tell you that is 100% true.
Yep.
It's cheap to start a business. There's not a lot of red tape. There's great financial institutions that can help you get that started. And come to Little Rock. I mean, that would be my sales pitch to people that are thinking about it, is just come here and try it. The food's great. We're diverse. We have the Robinson Center that has world-class theater, the Arkansas Repertory Theater, the Museum of Discovery. The Arkansas Art Center is going to be probably one of the most amazing art museums in the United Nations once it's done here in the next 2 years. So we've got a lot of good things going, but we can't rest on that, right? We have to continue to push to be a better and more thriving and inclusive city.
Boy, well, I sure hope that you decide to make decisions that will keep you right in front and center in Little Rock, because you have a lot of energy, and we're really excited to hear about all these ideas. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I know that we will see each other again out in the community, and I look forward to seeing what happens in June. So thank you, Miguel, for being on the show.
You had to go to the bottom of the barrel to pick my name out, but I'm happy to be.
No, that's not true. Don't insult my show like that.
This is true, right? No, you're right.
We love having you on, and it's nice to hear a new perspective. And the idea is to get your story and understand how you got to love this city, because all of us, I'm not from here either, but I love it, and I want people to understand why we love it and why we moved here. It's Little Rock. It's the next big thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for coming on the show, and we'll see you next time.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.